Well, many thanks indeed for staying with us here on the news at 1. It's time to talk business. Let's begin with some cherry news as the Naira has gained massively in the black markets following the Central Bank of Nigeria's plan to redesign the local currency. Well, reports are suggesting that the exchange rates between the Naira and the US dollar, according to the data release on the FMDQ Security Exchange, the official forex trading portal, show that the Naira opened at 444.00 Naira per dollar and closed at 445.67 Naira per dollar on Wednesday. I also observed that the Naira has steadily been gaining against the greenback. Earlier on Thursday, the Naira exchanged at 760 Naira per $1 from 870 Naira it started this week. However, further inquiries from BDC sources reveal that the Naira has continued to gain as its later exchange for 710 Naira per dollar and now currently trading at 650 Naira per dollar, according to another source. The development comes weeks after the CBN, that's the Apex Bank, said it has decided to redesign 200 Naira, 500 Naira and 1,000 Naira notes. As part of efforts to ensure full compliance with the Naira redesign deadline, the Central Bank of Nigeria has now directed banks to accept cash deposits beyond the cashless policy threshold. Director of Corporate Communications Department of the Apex Bank, Mr. Osita Nwasobi, disclosed this at the CBN Special Day at the ongoing 2022 Lagos International Trade Fair. Well, the CBN cashless policy stipulates a daily cumulative limit of 500,000 Naira and 300,000 Naira and 3 million Naira rather, with withdrawals and lodgements by individuals and corporate customers, respectively, without charges. Mr. Osita said the new and existing currencies will remain legal, tender and circulate together until January 31, 2023. That's other stories. The management of Dubri Oil Company Limited says about 60 barrels of its crude oil was stolen daily from its production in oil mining lease OML 96 after vandals drilled into the company's evacuation network. It is estimated that the company has been losing about 5 million Naira daily since the pipeline was compromised. And during an on-the-spot assessment of the illegal pipeline drawn from the oil company's site at Gele Gele in Ovai Northeast local government area of Edo State, a source told newsmen that before the illegal line was discovered with the help of community individuals and security personnel, the company had recorded a deadline in the daily production from over 200 barrels to about 117 barrels, with nearly a third of production being lost daily. Now, away from the oil and gas sector, the Debt Management Office says policies by the Central Bank of Nigeria are having adverse effect on the liquidity of the financial markets, making it difficult to sell even sovereign instruments that are regarded as risk-free. Director General of the DMO, Ms. Patience Oniha, made this disclosure at the IFN African Dialogue and Reports 2022. In October, the DMO could not raise 117 billion Naira from the sale of FGN's 225 billion Naira bond program because subscription weakened during the October FGN bond auction. This implies that as the federal government is having difficulty raising funds to finance its budget, the widened budget deficit may further put pressure on government's finances, especially in the areas of capital project. Well, let's shift our attention now to global markets as Asian shares spiked higher today while the dollar nursed steep losses after a smaller than expected increase in U.S. consumer prices fueled hopes that the Federal Reserve could tone down its aggressive pace of interest rate hikes. MSCI's Broadex Index of Asia-Pacific shares outside Japan jumped at 3.72%. Australia's ASX 200 index climbed at 2.43%, and Japan's Nikkei rose at 3%, while the U.S. Consumer Price Index climbed at 7.7% year-on-year, the first time since February that the annual increase was below 8%, and the smallest gain since January. Overnight, the S&P 500 and Nasdaq notched up their biggest daily percentage gains in over 2 years on the data. Mainland China stocks opened at 2.1% higher, while Hong Kong's shares shot up at 6.5% in early trade. Away from global markets, UK's economy shrank in the 3 months to September at the start of what is likely to be a lengthy recession, underscoring the challenge for Finance Minister Mr. Jeremy Hunt as he prepares to raise taxes and cut spending next week. Friday's official data shows that economic output shrank by 0.2% in the third quarter, less than the 0.5% contraction analysts had forecast in a poll. but it was the first fall in gross domestic product (GDP) since the start of 2021, where the UK was still under tight coronavirus restrictions as households and businesses struggled with a severe cost of living crisis. While the United Kingdom's economy is now further below its pre-pandemic size, it is the only group of 7 economy yet to recover fully from the COVID slump and is smaller than it was 3 years ago on a calendar quarter basis. Elsewhere, the dollar languished on Friday after a sharp sell-off overnight when U.S. inflation data came in cooler than expected, raising market hopes of a peak in consumer prices that could temper the Federal Reserve's aggressive monetary tightening campaign. Well, the yuan also jumped at noon after China's health authorities eased some of the country's heavy COVID-19 curbs, including shortening quarantine times for close contacts of cases and inbound travelers. Well, the onshore yuan rallied more than 1% following the news, while the offshore yuan touched a high of over 7 per dollar, its strongest in over a month. China COVID news gave an additional leg up to risk sentiment, with the dollar largely erasing its modest attempts to recoup some of its deep overnight losses earlier in the session. Let's wrap things off now with oil prices on the international market as it jumped more than 2% today after health authorities in China, the top global crude oil importer, eased some of the country's heavy COVID curbs. West Texas Intermediate crude experiences an upward price review of 2.72%, selling for $88.80 per barrel. Brent crude futures also experienced an uptick of 2.52%, selling at $96.03 per barrel. And Bonnie Lights fell to sell at $93.83 per barrel, with a price decline of 0.29%. And for the OPEC basket, crude oil dealers are offering $93.22 per barrel, with a price decline of 2.89%.